Why the change, if you don't mind me asking, like from guitar to, because I think you always grew up going to be the guitarist, right? Like Eddie Van Halen and and
Well, I think I've always had modest goals, and again, talking about seeing something and seeing it as being so complicated. If you're looking at Van Halen, you're looking at AC/DC. These are bands that
iconic
we all
guitarists.
listen to. I remember thinking, well, I want to play in a band, and but what Eddie Van Halen's doing, when am I ever going to be able to do that? Probably never, And then I looked at what the bass player's doing. It's still really cool. I loved how it sounded, but it also seemed like something I could actually do. Mm-hmm. And so at first, it just seemed like, this is something I could do. It seemed almost impossible to do what lead guitar players were doing to someone who couldn't play at all. Really.
Yeah.
So, and then my friend, I had a friend who played bass and was willing to give me lessons for, I think it was like $5 an hour or something like that. This is 1984 we're talking, wow. So that was...
Well, $5 back then was money. Yeah.
Still pretty good, yeah. That was just a little bit above minimum wage or whatever at the time, but yeah, so... Yeah, like I loved how the bass sounded anyway, mm-hmm. And but it just seemed like something that I could actually do, and I wanted to play with people, and I didn't want to have to wait until I could play like,
Eddie or these guys,
somebody that good. It just seemed impossible. I mean, and I loved how the bass sounded anyway, so it really was perfect. Like by the time I was 14, for some reason, I just really gravitated towards the bass, and so I started taking the lessons, and I loved it. And then, I remember I think it's maybe the first year that I started playing bass, I also got to see Yes live. Oh. So I got to see Chris Squire, and then I got to see Geddy Lee. When I look back at it, I got to see all these amazing bass players the first couple years that I played bass, and it had to have left some kind of an impact because I saw Yes, I saw Rush, all these concerts came through Buffalo. Who else?
Which is actually ironic that sort of you were looking at Eddie and thought, I could never do that, and then Geddy Lee is just as impressive. Not, I mean, like what Geddy Lee does, it's something that, I mean, it's mind-blowing.
And again, I was like, well, that's beyond me too, because it was my first year of playing. I thought, I'll probably never be able to do that either, but whatever. I really did love it. And then the following year, Iron Maiden played, and on that particular night, their guest in Buffalo was Tallis. So I got to see Billy Sheehan and Steve Harris the same night, again within a year or so of having started playing bass. So
you got to see like four of the greatest bass players of all time in rock history.
What a great opportunity, and I'll never forget seeing Steve Harris and Billy Sheehan on one night, and Billy did take a solo. Yeah, even though it was an opening gig, and I was like, well, that is unbelievable. That's, even to this day, I can't think of a rock bass player who can play that way,
I think bass players who can shred that hard, I probably know, like, especially metal, like a couple, like in jazz, you have, Hadron Farad and these guys who can also play like anything.
Yes.
But it's a different style and it's a completely different vibe and being jazz. But I think in rock, there's there's a Japanese friend of mine, Ayumu, he's one of our artists. He plays with a pick though, but he's also like insanely fast. But Billy was doing that in the 70s, in the 80s at least for sure. Yeah, Billy was, for me growing up, Billy was definitely one of my heroes. Steve Harris and Billy Sheehan were probably...
Yeah, same for me. So like I said, seeing them early in my career, it kind of put something in the back of my head, like, maybe someday I'll play some stuff like that.
You got more ambitious when you saw them.
I'm like, I'll start out with the more meat and potatoes stuff, but if I can get there, I'd like to.
And here you are. That's incredible because I think, now you are the guy for many bass players now. I mean, not so young anymore. I mean, bass players like my age, 30 years old, we grew up, watching you guys, watching you do your thing.